Well, hello everyone, I'm Branden Bodendorfer, and welcome to another edition of the Third Thursday podcast. Today we're going to talk about something that is often misunderstood and very rarely celebrated. Losing. We've all experienced loss in our life, I'm absolutely sure of it. But one thing that most of us will probably generally reflect on is that losing is what truly shapes us. Yes, celebrating wins and having exciting opportunities is often something that really motivates us, but it doesn't shape who we are. Not like losing something that was so passionate to you that the pain of the loss hurts and sticks with you. Now, I've endured a lot of losses in my life, and I can tell you it's the losses that have helped me overcome many other obstacles and have really made me who I am today. So today in the Third Thursday podcast, we're going to reflect on some of the personal losses that I've had. I'm going to talk to you about a framework that's really helped me overcome many of these losses and really propelled me forward. Because I truly believe if it wasn't for this framework, I would not be here today. I'd be in a much different place. And I hope through this podcast, as you hear about some of my personal stories and you learn about the framework of how I deal with loss, that it'll help motivate you to rise and reach for new opportunities. Through this podcast, I encourage you, if you have questions, to go ahead and hit in the comments. Share with any friends that you might know that's dealing with a loss. And if you're in a moment or in a season where you need to hear these words and you want to talk to me, by all means, please reach out. So let's talk about some of the losses that I've endured and how they've shaped who I am today. Well, for those that don't know me, when I was in high school, before my senior year, I ventured out to Washington, D.C. to a leadership conference. At the time, the theme of that conference was unlocking your potential. And at the end of the conference, they gave me a key. And they told me that key was the key to unlocking my potential. Today, that key is the key to my success. And there will be an additional episode coming down the pipeline that I'm going to talk about just that. The opportunity that you have to unlock your potential. And I'll give you the whole background story on that. But through that conference, I got excited for my senior year. I was excited to see the world ahead of me, to know what was coming in front of me, and to know that in less than 12 months, I would be in the world to make my own choices, discover the opportunities that are out there, and venture on a life that I was going to make for myself. Throughout my senior year, all my friends, they were out filling out for colleges and get excited for where their ventures would take them. They were learning about what they might be in the career field and what opportunities lay there. I, on the other hand, I wanted to shape others. I felt if I signed up and applied for an FFA leadership position, that I would have the ability to enter a place after high school that I could help shape others and hopefully unlock their potential. Well, my senior year went, and I never once filled out an application for a college or a secondary education because I was so passionate about what I wanted to do. And I knew that if I applied for this and showed this excitement that I had, by no doubt they would see the potential that I had to help others be successful. So after my senior year, graduation came, and I went down to Madison, Wisconsin for a convention where I began the process of being interviewed, tested, and hopefully would end with me being on stage, being announced as one of the next FFA officers. And there was dozens, I believe almost hundreds of people. And that was broken down into 10 different sections. And in my section, there was 12 people that were applying. It came down to the final day, and I was one of the top 3 finalists. However, I wasn't the one that was on stage. When that session ended, I can remember it like it just was yesterday. I walked out on the footsteps of that convention hall. I looked up at the sky. I looked over at my FFA advisor, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. Because for so long, I've been planning for this. Because this was what my future was, what it was going to be. And at that moment, I felt empty, felt lost. I wasn't excited about what was to come. and really didn't know who I was going to be. That loss eventually led to an opportunity for me being a business owner. And through that process, I started to grow other businesses and people. And through my entrepreneurship years, I continued to build out what I felt was the ideal business model. And then there was one business venture that I was a part of. It was actually something that really brought me out of my lost space from my teenage years to modern day adulthood, where I was nearly 35 years old. And that was a snow plowing company. I was a part of the original crew that helped take it off the ground when somebody else owned it. And I worked for them for dozens of years. And then all of a sudden I had the opportunity to be a part of the ownership structure, and I took full advantage of it. But I wanted to make it more than just what it was, because that's what's exciting about being in business, is being able to grow it, see it blossom and enrich it with different ideas and innovation so it continues to be outward. And I did so. And I had people working alongside me, other leaders in the organization. However, to make a long story short, after a few years in that entrepreneurial role, I was out. The other leaders felt that I wasn't fit for it. And at the time, I felt broken. How could something that I helped start and foster be something that wasn't fitting for me today? How could I be the one that was considered out? And that hung with me deeply. It was just another loss I experienced. And at the time, I didn't know what was going to come next. I didn't have the energy to dive into other organizational thoughts and grow something else, because the thing that I've been so passionate about for the last few years was gone. And here I was on the doorstep of that business, wondering what was next. Later that same year, I lost my stepdad. See, when I was in 6th grade, my parents split, and I moved to a different school. And later that summer, I met a gentleman. That gentleman eventually became my stepdad. And I love my dad wholeheartedly, but his job and being separated from my mom, he wasn't there for a lot of the years that I was growing up, and this guy was. He didn't owe me nothing, but he invested in me. And that year, he was diagnosed with cancer. I remember 6 months earlier riding with him. We took a trip to Florida. And we never had that much togetherness, like just him and me, for 5 days as we drove to Florida, taking a Model Ford T that he bought back to their house from central Wisconsin, then driving back. It was 6 months later, he was diagnosed with brain cancer, and 7 months later, he passed away. And it was a great challenge, because when he was diagnosed with cancer, he lived in Florida and I was in Wisconsin. And I wish I would have had more time with him. I did go down several times to visit, but he was at an age where he had just retired. And I was at an age where I was reaching like what I would consider an exciting time in my adulthood. I had a young family, and he had always said that he wanted us to visit Disney World with him for the first time. And I was so excited for the years to be ahead of us, for the opportunities to spend his retirement seeing our family grow and being able to share those exciting moments. And he was gone. Nothing you can unwind, for sure. And at a young age of, I believe, 36, 37, I really recognized how short life was, how fast everything in front of us can be gone. And the moments that we have here right now, the time that we're spending better be best invested in the things that are going to make us who we want to be. So if you're watching this podcast, thank you. I understand how valuable your time is. And I hope that I have the ability to make some type of impact in your future, as he did mine. Losses hurt, and they stick with you. But there is hope through it all. Another loss that is more broad is losing key customers. Many of us are in business. Those that are in sales, you understand what it means to have a key customer. They always say that 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. So if you lose one of them that's in that 20%, that can make a major impact on your ability to function, to reach your goals, to hire and expand and grow your staff, to make investments. So when you have those losses, not only is it troubling that you lost the financial abilities that that customer provided you, but the opportunities that you had in front of you are usually stalled, put on hold, and you have to go back and figure out what is to come next. I've had a number of key customers that I've lost. And I will say, thankfully, with every one of those customers that I lost, I was able to walk away and sharpen my saw. Was it a customer experience issue? Was it a product that we were building? Was it a service that we were delivering? What were we missing that the customer was no part of our tenure? And it's through those losses that I was able to build out better products and services and have a higher customer retention. The value of what we provided created a better outcome for our own business. And I imagine that's true for many of you. But we could have then sat back in each one of those instances and thought to ourselves, wow, we're great. I don't know why the customer won't want to be with us. That reflection was key and is part of that same framework. The last personal story that I want to share with you is one about a passing of a pet. Now, those that follow me on social media probably know that in the last month, we lost our dog, Hudson. He was awesome. He is awesome. This dog entered my life nearly 18 years ago, the same year that I met my wife. I don't know of a marriage without him part of it. My kids don't know a life without him either. Now, I've always been a pet lover, and I imagine many of you are as well. But it isn't until you lose them you realize how much they were part of you. Someone told me through this process, loss makes us pause, makes us grieve. And honestly, it sucks. But with every loss that hurts, you have to recognize the pain is because of the love that you had, the passion that you shared. Now, over the last month, our family has been through all levels of pain, a little bit of anger, for sure, sadness, disappointment, and overall just weakness. And I'll tell you a handful of things that worked for me, and I still am active in today, is journaling. And one tip that I've recognized that each and every day in my planner, I'm writing out the thoughts, the questions that I have, things I don't have answers for maybe right now, or just things that come across my mind. At the end of the week, I reflect on those thoughts. I ask myself where I am now versus where I was last week, and it's made an impact. It's allowed me to go from a place of brokenness to a place of contentment and understanding. There's even been some laughter. There's even been some smiles. But I will tell you something too, that sometimes when we pray, we don't always pray for clarity. We just pray for peace. And that is where we start with the first part of this process. Reflection. I want you to go back and think of all the losses that I just shared with you in the stories that I've told you. And those losses have caused us to pause. But what's most important is in that moment of pausing, I made mention of journaling, having conversations, discussing what was in front of us. That reflection, even though sometimes it's painful and can be very emotional and hard, it's very healthy. And sometimes you have to ask yourself some real questions about who you are, what your business is, what the people around you are doing, and who you're surrounding yourself with. Because sometimes the loss isn't always fully on you, but it's the sum of everything around you. If you didn't watch the last podcast about the sum of all things, I encourage you to bookmark that and have a conversation with yourself about it later. Because that point of reflection is the start of you being able to refocus. It's the point in which you can start to bring everything together and get back on track. It's a part where you start to recenter who you are. You start to unravel what's lost and begin to set new priorities. The stories I shared with you, in some cases, are losses that I cannot bring back. Some of the losses are things that require me to start over, and some of the losses are areas of opportunity. Now, as you go through this process and you start to refocus, I want you to know just one thing. When one thing ends, another begins. My 10-year-old son out of the blue shared that with me recently when I was sharing a story about losses with him. And he said, "Dad, when one thing ends, another begins. When I leave elementary, I'm going to enter junior high." And as sad as he might be about leaving elementary, the excitement that he has for junior high is beyond this world. Even though he has no clue what junior high all entails. No recesses. You have way more homework. And your accountability on what you're doing starts to become part of who you are the rest of your life. That uncertainty is exciting. But it's through his ability and your ability to refocus that you start to put in perspective and really start to begin what aligns with you and matters most. I find that during this period in my journaling and in my planner, I really look at the professional builder. I start to look at my vision board and start to outline, what does the horizon look like? What things are most important to me, and how is it going to help reshape who I want to be? Through that reflection, I start to see what is different now about what I'm going to become. I recognize the value of time and who I'm spending my time with. I recognize what it means to not only have a business, to have a good business plan, and to have you and your leadership on the same level, on the same page, and working that in stride so you're not left outside. I recognize those things. And then the point will come as you go through this process and you really are able to see what it is that you want to be, you can start to rise. That is the third step in this plan. See, when you start to rise, it's not necessarily about forgetting. It's about honoring. Because of the losses that you endured and the pain that you have had to face, you're doing what is necessary to honor that for yourself. And you're saying, I'm going to go ahead and rise up and do better. I'm going to be the person that I found myself to be when I set out and refocused who I am. The stories I share with you have created a lot of empathy in my life for others, discipline in myself, and found an internal strength I didn't know I had. It developed me in ways that I didn't recognize when I was younger. These stories at the same time may feel that they're not necessarily about being strong, but about a willingness to be better. It's through those routines and daily practices of doing what I said I would do, that I would rise up from where I was. Through this process, I'll be honest with you, at times, the strength that's needed isn't always there, and that's okay. Don't think you have to be the tough guy, because the deeper, most honest thing I can tell you is through the moment in the framework of rising up, you're going to have moments where you're going to fall back down, and that pain is going to face you, and you're going to question what it is you're going to do. Because for some of you, it may be very recent, and the timeline it takes to grieve through the process of the loss might not have a long horizon. But know with each day, as you venture out there and you show up for yourself, you show up for your family, you show up for the business partners, for your coworkers, and for the people that you lead, you will make an impact. That routine, that promise to yourself will help you rise. And through this process, I want you to know it's not always just about you. There might be people around you dealing with the same loss. You might be at a different timeline than them in the grieving process or the recovery stage. And you might have a personal responsibility to your family, to your team, to act in a way that helps them reach this part of the process. It might feel like weight at times, but looking back, it'll only make you stronger. Where do we go from here? And how does that look and feel? Sometimes we have to reach. And in some cases, I'm not there yet for the recent losses that have occurred, but for previous experiences that I've had in life, reaching was the best part of the process. When I discovered that I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life just out of high school, I was lost. I had to refocus. I definitely had to rise up. But the moment that I started to reach for what it is that I wanted in front of me, what I saw for the clarity of what it is that I could be, that unlocking that potential, that act of certainty was worth every moment of it. I would not be in the seat talking to you if I chose not to reach. Because sometimes we become comfortable in the means of who we are, that the ability to go ahead and reach for the stars is outside of our scope. Simply being comfortable. And that is something I want to share with you today too. For those that maybe not working through a loss, but you're working through your day. When was the last time you reached for something new? Yeah, you might have goals. You might have an action plan. You might have a daily routine. But are you reaching? Or are you just comfortable? Prior to this last experience, this last loss of losing my pet dog, the title of the upcoming podcast was going to be about being comfortable and how being comfortable is the first sign of failure. See, in life, we're either growing or dying. And the moment that we're in the middle is the moment of being comfortable, where we haven't reached for growth and we haven't felt the pain of losing. If you're comfortable today, listen in for a minute. Because today we're going to talk about what it means to be able to reach, what it means to be able to expand outside of this your daily routine by building weekly goals, looking at the relationships that are around you and asking yourself, how do I expand on my annual keys? Do I have annual keys that are going to help me reach the areas and endpoints of the life that I want to live? And are you doing it with purpose? Have you found new possibilities? And are you being outward in your approach? Sometimes reaching is also about rebuilding. It's saying yes to new opportunities. And it's starting over from where you left off. We've commonly heard the statement that falling isn't about the fall. It's about rising up and getting back on your feet. And sometimes in this process, we will fall back and we will have to make a choice to rise up again. It isn't to the moment that we choose to truly reach and stretch ourselves that we're going to reach the possibilities that are in front of us and hopefully unlock a new journey that we have. When I look at the Key to Success Planner and I think about this reach stage, I ask myself each and every week as I go through that weekly plan, what are my opportunities? What are the connections? How I'm going to develop on them? Because that is what is going to continue to move me forward and bring me closer and closer to my goals as I reach for them. To reflect a little bit, if you're experiencing loss, I'm with you. If you're getting over and moving onward, I'm here for you. If you're trying to find who you are and what you want to become, let's go get it together. And if you're reaching, that's awesome. You'll get there. I totally have faith. The framework to reflect, to sit in the loss and to feel it, to journal through it. If it's about making decisions, use a decision journal and journal the process as it unfolds. 2, refocus. Ask yourself what really matters and align your time and energy. 3, rise. Take a step forward, even if it's a shaky one. Sometimes our knees will tremble, but it's the first step that leads to the next step. And finally, reach. Reconnect with people, rediscover your purpose, open up possibilities, and reach for the stars. You can do it. I have faith. This process is more like a cycle. Throughout life, it's going to have its cycle. And you're going to find yourself in one season to the next at different phases. Recognize the phase and where you're at in this framework and work your way through it to the next one. Always be stepping up. I'm going to ask you, where are you at? Take a moment and pause for yourself. What losses have ever shaped you? What things have happened that you vividly know that the outcome of that loss has made you who you are today? And what did you learn from those experiences? What did it teach you? And how did it make the journey that you're on more sustainable? How did you become who you are? And how much is it woven in what you do each day? Loss is hard, no doubt. As I shared in each one of my stories, loss is truly what has shaped me. It's through those losses I've recognized the value of time, companionship, relationships. I've recognized what it means to be a more empathetic person, how to sharpen my saw so that I could accomplish the things that I want to do, how I might redevelop a product or a service to better meet the needs of the people around me. If any of this resonates with you, drop a message. If you know someone that's going through this, I encourage you to share it with them. Through these actions, through this process, we will begin to shape ourselves into a mold that we want to become. And with that said, thank you so much for listening. I know this time is so valuable. And Lord willing, I'll see you in the next one.